In our last episode, what we try as much as possible to do was to lay a foundation that eventually will drive the direction of this special program. Because don't forget that we said this journey is about you and I. I strongly believe the fact that you and I could make the difference in our little corners. You don't have to have been the president of a particular country to have made a difference. You and I. And so you'll find out that in the first episode, the conversation and the engagement with the intention that we all have a common template with which we drive this conversation. I want to say a very great evening again. Thank you for the opportunity of granting me access to your living rooms, your little spaces, as leaders in your own space and in your own right. I have this confidence that at the end of these interactions, we'll be better off. The world will be busy looking out for your person because tremendous values will begin to flow through you, even without having to make so much noise. The testimonies flowing from you will be your signpost. At the last episode, we did mention the fact that in the words of Abraham Lincoln, wherein he said, any man, or as many men as possible, who endure adversity. But if you want to find out the true nature of a man, leadership is one way by which you could find out the true nature of any man. Man by nature has a capacity for pretense. We have the opportunity to want to create the picture and give the impression of whatever we're not. We have the tendency, some persons are such great professionals when it comes to this thing called power, influence, and leadership. A little psychology and philosophy just to calm you down before they enter into you. But I'm going to say this, regardless of how it goes, you're going to be a better leader. I want to believe that leaders like you, persons like you, are the ones that our generations has been waiting for. But I love us to move ahead from here. Once again, welcome to this special program. This is Leadership. I am Dr. Ajayi. What aspects do we intend to go into today? At the last episode, we defined leadership. We said we need to have a common definition, a common template, a common idea. Like I said, there are various definitions out there. Some will say leadership is about influence. Leadership is about the ability and the skill to administer, to coordinate, to direct, and all. You have unique definitions out there. But I'm going to say this, because we are the persons wanting to define leadership that works. Leadership that is transformative. Leadership that is adaptive. Leadership that is character-based. Leadership without contradiction. Leadership that is growing and maturing and evolving by the testimony of our impact and influence. I'm speaking to positive influence. Influence that go beyond a particular generation. We have to be on the common plate. So, at the last episode, we did define leadership to be a process initiated either by providence or self-effort to appointing one among equal in a reflective manner towards the accomplishment of a common goal. And we said this goal essentially has to do with the vision, not just of the organization. Even the man in leadership does have a vision. The one that is serving under a leader also have a vision. They all have a goal. They all have a destiny hanging over their heads. But we say good leadership is only evidence in a process where the organization achieves a goal, the leader achieves his vision and career goals, the one that serves under the leader and an employee of any organization is also able to accomplish and to attain the fulfillment of his or her dreams. In this particular episode, we want to consider leadership not just as a process, but the initiative part of leadership. Leadership is always a product of an initiation. You have a dream that you want to become very great. And so you went for it. Some went to school, chose a particular program, a particular course that could define their future career. And so, in entering into leadership, you could enter into leadership in one or three ways. Either nature-driven, skill-driven, or based on the combination of both, nature and skill. And when it comes to the issue of this initiation, I need to say this to you. It is good to be ambitious, but being very ambitious could be dangerous. I want you to be very ambitious. I want you to aspire to be better than the best, not just the best. I desire that you will not just have to excel, but I need you to exceed excellence. Because there are a lot of excellent men out there. But if you will exceed excellence, those who thought they have attained the zenith of greatness will have no choice than coming to learn from you. And so tonight, I want to speak to an aspect of leadership that will tend to give you a space, create a world for you that will make you distinct. And in that, I want to say this. Have you observed the fact that after COVID, before COVID, everybody tend to run into their various pigeons and various holes. Now, after COVID, Pew Research in the United States, Pew Research, one of the best research organizations in the world, Pew Research, conducted the research. Because over time, they now found out the fact that, yes, because of the impact of COVID, the revenue of most organizations seemed to have crashed. So they barely could survive. But however, in an attempt to survive, what do? Organizations tend to have added more to not just seeking for persons that have a particular thing that all organizations tend to seek for. They ask for more. If you have that extra that they seek, they're ready to break the bank for you. Because persons like you, leaders like you, individuals like you, employees like you, husbands like you, tends to stand out over time. Wives like you tend to stand out over time. Youth like you tend to stand out over time. And what is that? Have you observed the fact that each time organizations were to have thrown out vacancies for who need to be employed to filling up spaces in their particular space, they want to outline the kind of qualifications that you must have. I hope you do remember that. Oh, we need someone who will come in to be the group managing director of this organization. And we need him or her to have A, B, C, and D. And if you look around, you find out that much of what organizations tend to desire or expect, what they look out for in persons that they consider for employment, is what we consider to be credentials, certificates, years of experience. Have you observed that? So what happens is this. If you want to be the kind of transformative, adaptive, transformational, and character-based leader that we have always sought for, the organizations we pride for, you need just three things. Number one, you need skills. And when you talk about skill, there are two dimensions to skills. Number one is the hard skill. The hard skill. Your credentials, your certificates. No, we need a PhD holder. Oh, no, we need a second degree holder, a master's degree holder. We need an MBA holder. Oh, we need someone who had this baggage of credentials, this baggage of ideas. We need someone with so number of years of experience. That's what they sought for. That's what they seek for. And the moment you present that, amidst others you are employed, how come that once you are employed, they start talking about appraisals, start speaking to evaluations? They begin to compare you, make a comparison between yourself and your colleagues. Now, I need to say this. If you want to stand out to be the kind of leader, transformative, the kind of adaptive, the kind of character-based leader that our generation needs, you don't just need, number one, the hard skill. You don't just need the hard skill. Because the hard skill is all about your credential. In this experience, in this particular episode, I want to speak to the fact that you also need the soft skills. You need soft skills. You said, okay, Doc, is it mandatory for me to have these soft skills? Right, of course. Can I give you an instance? They said, this group managing director is highly intelligent. This guy is schooled. But you know what? He has a problem. So what problem is that? They said it's a gossip. Oh, what is that? Oh, this particular head of department is such a very wonderful person. But when it comes to relationship, he's a toxic person. He lacks relationship. Oh, this madam, she's a performer. However, there's a problem. He said, what is that problem? She lacks responsible communication skill. Wow. So the question is this. What will be the benefit of the hard skill? What will be the benefit of being a master's or an MBA degree holder when you're a thief? That's the problem we have. Our MD is a very relational person. But when it comes to the right of the employees, he doesn't know how to handle it. No, he's such a very friendly person. It's just that he's a self-centered person. Now, for the kind of leadership that we're talking about, get this right. Can I give you some examples of the soft skills that you will need to really be the kind of leader that we're referring to? Number one, you need an analytical skill. That's the truth. Number two, you have to be very objective. You say, how do you mean by objective? That could be subject to an individual. Of course, I don't have a problem with that. I will cite this instance. Some time ago, we had a conference. I was to chair the conference. We had invited in one of my professor friends from one of the universities in the US, Houston to be precise. So he came in to Lagos. On the day of the conference, we had these high tables arranged. The first row, the second row, and the last row. So I was seated with some other leaders, some other scholars in the middle row. He was seated to our left, also arranged with four sets of seats, and a table in between. While he was going out up to make his first presentation, he had his handset, his cell, on the stool. When he was done with the first session, he came. When there were questions, he attended to questions. He sat. After that particular session, we ended the session going into a short break. And you know what? While we went on a short break, his handset, his cell, got missing. Wow. So one of the protocol officers, one of the senior persons came around and said, hey, Doc, you know what? The handset of Professor A, B, and C is missing. It's no longer on the stool. So I said, wow, this could be bad. This will taint our image. Can we go through the CCTV camera? We went through the CCTV camera. Apparently, sitting just 2 seats away from him happened to be a gentleman that was once known to be someone who had a challenge with pilfering. By pilfering, I mean stealing. Of course, he has grown over time. There was a time where he was such a nasty armed robber. Eventually changed, he became a revived person, he kept working on himself. We all have a testimony. At least I do have a testimony of him. So when we found that on that CCTV camera, he was seated on the same row, the other officers that came to meet with me, the moment they spotted him, they said, oh, Doc, we know who would have made away with Prof's cell. I said, who? They said, look at this gentleman. He has a history of being a thief. I said, wow. But what if They said, no, doc. Look at everybody on the front row. Look at the person seated in the next row. None of them have a history of pilfering. I wouldn't know why I was restless. I kept saying, anyway, let's not condemn him. Someone said, he has a lot of respect for you. If you invite him in, he will tell you the truth. The moment he was invited in, of course, they have harassed him before getting him into my office. Hey, Mr. So-and-so, so cell is missing. I learned you were the one that picked it. And you know what touched me so much was that as old as he is, I'm speaking of someone well over 48 years, he looked straight into my eyes and said, Doc, you are my mentor. You know I have a history of stealing, but you are aware that over time, I tried to overcome that. I never stole this cell. And so he began to cry. I felt touched. Others said, no, throw him aside. Doc, don't get carried away by this emotional blackmail. Something within me kept saying, do not accept that position until you find out. So I said, everybody seems to have concluded that you made away with it, except for myself anyway. But you know, the majority said that. So he now said, how much is the cell worth? I will pay for it, but I don't have the money now. Everybody said, Doc, can you see? Did you hear what he just said? I said, yes. Okay, I'll pay for it. If this cell has been stolen, even if we have to replace it, the truth is this, our image will have been tainted. Prof will leave Nigeria, go back to US and said, my cell was stolen, but they replaced it. But let me round up by saying this. As soon as we went back to the next session, we were just all about taking our seats. I was still back in the office. The head of protocol walked into my office and said, sir, the last time we went on break, Prof forgot his handset on the stool. I picked it for him. I said, what? He said, yes. I said, okay. Can you do me a favor? Go meet Mr. A and Mr. B. Hand over the set to them, but let so-and-so be around them. The moment he went back and said, Doc said I should hand over this cell to you, that you give it to Prof. Everybody was shocked. They said, where did you pick it from? He said, no, I picked it after the break because I didn't want it misplaced. How about that? We will go on a short break. But have this behind your mind. Objectivity from a sound mind is one of the soft skills that you need. We'll be right back. Before we went on break, I said that one of the key skills, soft skills that you need to making up for the great gap and distincting yourself from others is what I call the relational skill. I will give you a story in that part. A friend of mine, long time ago, over a decade or thereabout, once shared a story with me of two ladies, who had a conflict. A senior officer in the same organization and a junior officer, same organization. And this friend of mine happened to be the head of the disciplinary committee that was set up by the organization. And the story goes like this. He said, these two ladies worked in the same department, but had a very protracted conflict that had to be escalated to the level of the management, and the disciplinary committee was constituted to handle that. At the first sitting, he said, in reporting what happened there, said, the committee just called out the senior officer who had made the complaint. What exactly did you say was the problem between yourself and so person? He went ahead, rather than this senior officer speaking to the problem, went on character assassination, calling the junior officer all manner of unprintable names. The junior officer, when it was time for her to also have spoken to her case, went after the senior officer because she had called her unprintable names, rather than addressing her matter, went ahead just throwing tantrums. And so the committee decided and said, hey, with the current display before us by the junior officer, we could prove the case of insubordination. We could prove the case of indiscipline. And we could also prove the case of gross indiscipline. And so this friend of mine said, while they were trying to conclude with their report, he was actually in the fresher, in the restroom. All of a sudden, he heard a voice, an intuition from within that said, hey, all the time you have always asked the question, but why? How come that in this case, you never bothered to ask the question, but why? Why did this junior officer, this woman, had to react or respond or behave or conduct herself in such a manner that wasn't right? He said at that instance, he quickly had to call on the other members of the disciplinary committee and said they should avail him 5 minutes, that there's a particular gray area he would love to cross. So the fielding parties were invited back. He said at this instance, the junior officer was now looking more composed and very gentle. So he now said, oh, madam, today you're looking so friendly. Today you're looking so calm. What exactly happened? So he said the junior officer went along to saying the fact that herself and her spouse, herself and her husband have been looking out to having a child for the past 18 years of being married. They never had any. And so that particular year, she became pregnant, having had a serious battle with fibroid. This time she was pregnant. It was confirmed, and so she began to manage her pregnancy. Once the pregnancy was 6 months, she said she observed a trace of blood on a Saturday. And because they were religious persons, they had to go to church on Sunday. They went to church on Sunday. Sunday, the thing continued. On Monday, they went to the hospital. And by the time they got to the hospital, the consultant found out earlier on they had mentioned to her that she had a child, only for them to now confirm that she had 2 children. She actually had twins in her womb. But, the sad news was the fact that the twins were now dead. It was quite a traumatic experience. So while they were heading home, herself and her husband, she said she recalled the fact that her senior officer, the other female officer, had called for a strategic meeting 3 weeks before that incident. So she said to her husband, my boss isn't like that. I would love to attend that strategic meeting. The husband said to her, I will take permission from you. I will call out to your officer and make an excuse for you. She said she will be there. So she went. While the meeting was ongoing, she said, her senior boss just identified her where she sat and called out to her, Mrs. So-and-so, how come that everybody is feeling so smiley? Everybody is relating. Everybody is making contribution. You aren't doing anything. What the hell happened to you? Do you have a problem? If you have a problem, you wouldn't be the first to have a problem. That was what led to their fight. She was highly offended, and she stood up. And that was what brought them to the disciplinary committee. So she now said to everybody, my friend said, this woman said to everybody and said, so I'm very sorry for what I did. And so today that you are also invited us back for the second time, I need to say to all of you, my swollen tummy contains dead bodies. We meant to have gone for evacuation today, but I need to have honored this invite. And at that point, everybody on the committee, according to my friend, became emotional. And at that point, he said, I stood up, Doc, and I said, do we still have any case here? The senior officer, the woman who happened to be her senior, felt so bad that out of relationship, rather than she going back home, she came to honor our invite to the strategic meeting. I hope you'll have learned a lesson there. Not only should you be relational, you must learn to ensure that empathy, objectivity, analytic thinking. In other words, you need to be very, very analytical, very, very discerning in the way you read into matters. I hope you take home this point. Relationship is important. Discernment is important. It is one thing to be intelligent, it's yet the other to be discerning. So in building a good relationship, add discernment to it. People have issues, people have problems, but we all smile every time we come into our offices to earn our pay. Can I say this? You will make a whole world of difference if in your leadership you add relationship and discernment to it. You will gain the confidence of the people under you. And when you gain their confidence, that will lead to integrity. Can I say this? Integrity and character is a collateral anywhere. They will give you what certificates and what your title and your ranks wouldn't have made available. I want to say a very big thank you for coming around again in this episode. I assure you that the next episode is going to be so highly insightful, highly instructive, because you're going to learn a lot. Because in that particular episode, we'll be looking at one other skill that is important. Lack of this skill had ruined organizations, had devalued appointments and promotions, and had turned families against themselves. Looking out to meet with you on this program. This is leadership. Thank you and have a good day.